Welcome, everyone, here to KC Happy Hour episode number 11. We are happy to have you guys here with us, and we've got quite a few with us here in the studio. We already posted on all of our social medias. Ashley Rogero is with us here tonight, and we've got also Braden Eves, Connor Zilisch, and Pauly Massimino. Ryan Norberg and Brandon Jarschak were busy over the weekend. Those boys are still on the road, so we do not have them back yet, but we've got our crew here tonight, and of course, Ashley, our special guest for the night. Thanks for coming on.
Yep.
Everyone else is in normal position. We've got it set to go. We had a lot of racing actually over the weekend. So if we go back through what we had first and foremost, right near me here in Texas, the Texas Sprint Racing Series over at Amarillo was underway. They have had over 200 entries at almost every single event. This was the lightest one, and it's always a little bit lighter when they go to Amarillo. It's a really cool racetrack. It's based off of the Suzuka kart track over in Japan. And they've put a lot of work in, but Amarillo is way out, almost 3 hours out from the DFW area. It's about 3 hours out from Tulsa, Oklahoma too. So it only really ever sees this regional series come there, but it was still really good. We've got, of course, the winners coming across the bottom of the screen. They had some X30 senior drivers came out there. The K100 senior classes have always been massive. And a big shout out to Peyton Phillips, who ended up winning that race and ended up winning the championship over our boy Austin Osborne. I say our boy because he's been on the show, and he's also a little bit beat up and had a lot of long weekend in the Texas heat as well. So with all that said, though, they had a solid weekend. Numbers were good. That series has ended on a high note. We've gone over their 2022 schedule, their dates. They came out with that. Everyone's been coming out with those really early, so they've already got everything handed out for them with the IKF sanctioning. I'm sure there were a lot of SCUSA Supernats tickets that got handed out. On the flip side, going all the way out to the West Coast, the ROK Fest West guys were underway. And the rock festivals this year, we didn't get to see the one over on the East Coast end up happening over in New Orleans, unfortunately. But ROK Fest West got underway. Hunter Pickett, center of the screen there in the picture, ended up winning in Rock Shifter. And everything else was decent. The VLR, the 100cc numbers were good. The other stuff was so-so. The WK Grand Nationals were underway, and that was a little bit lighter as well. And then the big race over the weekend in the Midwest, a little bit bigger than where the WKA Grands were at Newcastle, was the Route 66 Sprint Series. And we'll put that across the bottom of the screen as well. And a big shout out I want to give to Keegan Bosch over in the Route 66 Sprint Series, and for Austin Jers. Jers swept all 4 main events for 206 and KA Junior, which are the only 2 junior categories they have over there now. Because Route 66, a lot like Texas Sprint Racing Series, is just a KA and 206 series event. Sorry about the lag right there, but the Route 66 series had a good turnout over there as well. Over at Badger Kart Club, they've still, I think that may have been their last event of the year as well too. So we've talked about it, how we had a big lull in the racing season here through the month of September. Everyone's kind of been all over, especially go-kart wise, from different regional series that have been getting underway or running their final events on through before we get into October with USPKS. But we've got a really busy stretch up ahead. The 206 Grand Nationals, they're not this weekend. They are next weekend. That's where a lot of guys were at the WK Grands racing and trying to get ready. Gary Lawson won a money race over the weekend. Jed Perkins, I think, came away with an eagle as well. So congratulations to those guys. And that was really the big headline class that they had. But that's going to be over a 350 entry race. And so for all of us with Kart Chaser, our weekends, not starting this weekend, but goes on a 3-weekend stretch with the 206 Grand Nationals. The Stars Championship Series is their finale in Pittsburgh. USPKS wraps up the week after that. We got 2 weeks off. Then we go to ROK Vegas and then on to Supernats. And Supernats is the big thing we want to talk about here in segment number 1 because there was some changes that came out, some news this week. So to fill everybody in on what happened with SCUSA Supernats, we'll first put the press release up on the screen. It's a little bit blurry. We do apologize for that. But to fill everyone in, so this year, to help boost the numbers and kind of give a little bit of rebirth to the Pro Shifter and the Master Shifter classes, they allowed the KZ Motors, which is the European open manufacturer spec, into the shifter division to run side by side with the IAME 175 SSE engine. Through the year, the 175 have a little more torque and obviously 50 more cc's. Was that a 10-pound weight penalty? They've since evened the weight out, as that by the time we got to the Supernats at Newcastle, everybody was on KZ except for a handful of drivers that had committed to the SSE through their contingency program at the beginning of the year. And then when we look towards Supernats, we talked about it, how initially it didn't look on the press release that KZ was going to get any kind of a cash purse. It only showed the 175 Pro Shifter class having 10 grand to win and X30 Senior having 10 grand to win. Well, that's changed. Now they have remerged those Pro Shifter classes. And an interesting part about the Pro Shifter stuff as well is where the schedule changes looking towards the SCUSA Supernats. So they have opened the Mini Swift class up to 88. I think it's the first time in about 5 years at Supernats that Mini will have an LCQ. And that's combined their Pro Shifter divisions, and they've taken the money they were going to put to the SSE class. They've upped it, made still a 10 grand to win in general shifter category, but you could walk away with 15 grand if you win on an SSE motor with a 3 grand bonus, or sorry, 5 grand bonus to that. And then if you look on the pole award as well, if you win Supernats on an IME SSE from the pole, you get 5 grand for winning the pole in the SSE and another 15 for winning the main event. And then there's still 10 grand up for grabs for the X30 stuff. That doesn't pertain, of course, to everyone we have here in the room, but it's stuff we all follow. And we talk about it a lot, that everyone here, no matter what, as racers, even if we don't run the shifter stuff, we love getting to see and watch the KZ guys go at it. When we get to Supernats, all the factory guys get after it. Ashley and Braden, you guys have been for almost as many years. Actually, I'll probably almost double the years that I've gone. Connor, you've won Supernats. Pauly, you've won Supernats. You've been there. I think everyone is really, really excited that we're going to have, still all the KZ factory guys coming over and what should be probably a full field with that much money up for grabs. So, Braden, I'll pass it off to you. I mean, we talked about it. You can explain as well for everyone from a KZ perspective versus IME, all of the factory drivers, they're linked with a specific manufacturer. They can't get out of it. So now we're not going to worry about potentially losing some of those guys.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to see KZ coming back a little bit. Seemed like people weren't super, or at least there were some people that weren't super happy with the IME version. So it's good to see that they're having both running against each other. And always it's cool to see a massive cash prize for Vegas, because just makes that final win at Vegas so much more special for that driver.
Yeah, and Ashley, we'll give you the chance to both talk a little bit as well. But I'm sure you can attest to it too. I mean, just as much as everybody loves to watch the headline X30 Senior and now the KA Senior races, which will have an LCQ for the first time this year, Pro Shifter is pretty cool, and it looks like we'll have a 44 kart field for KZ, which even in previous years has been about 25.
Yeah, for sure. I think going to Vegas and being at the Supernats, KZ is the class that everyone goes to watch, just because you do have all the Europeans that come over and race with the factory teams. And I feel like it's the one race a year that we do get to see that and see that talent that we don't get to see, on our national circuit come over and race. And they always put on a really good show.
And speaking of putting on a good show here, for everyone that doesn't know you too well, obviously, you're multi-time national champ. You've won a bunch of races all over. But this last year, you've been really busy away from the go-kart track too with the SRX racing program. First of all, how did that kind of come together, and how has that experience been as a go-karter kind of doing stuff in a completely almost new division of motorsports?
Yeah, so it was a big jump for me, really only having my karting background, and I ran some stock car stuff a little bit when I was younger. But for me, I knew that I wanted to work in motorsports, and I knew that, I didn't know if it wanted to be NASCAR, IndyCar, or I just wanted to be in motorsports. I knew that I kind of gave up on my dream of pursuing my racing myself. So I knew that I needed to be involved in the sport somehow. So I worked at GoPro Motorplex for a few years as a manager. And when this opportunity came up with SRX, I jumped right on it and got my foot in the door. I actually was hired as an office administrator. And as we kept going and getting closer to the season, I was more on the operational side of the series. So, I did all of the travel coordination, all the driver coordination, all the management with the track promoters, and just making sure that the show went on. And when we were live at 8 p.m. on Saturday, everything was ready to go. So that was a really cool experience for me. And we're getting ready, going back through and doing all our budgets and getting everything in line for 2022.
Which is awesome. And again, the showmanship part of the sport is something that karting's been lacking. So it's cool to have another person on the show that can kind of speak to that. Obviously, you got to race the IME Grands as well as everybody else here. I think Pauly's the best candidate for SRX, based off the interview he had before the main event and right after. But
I don't know.
Give me a shot. Give me a shot. I'll go in there. I'll do it for free.
I want to see Pauly on an oval. I think that would be a fun to watch.
Oh man,
I'll do it for free.
You'd be like Paul Tracy.
Pauly, the next Paul Tracy.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Crash my way straight through the front. I went to one of those races. They don't crash, so they need to spice it up. They need to throw me in.
Always like,
The race I went to,
down,
they were
stay
crashing.
west.
Yeah.
Which one did you go to, Pauly?
Same one as you.
Oh yeah, I went there with you.
They crashed one time.
They were there. They were banging. It was a good race. I can't even lie. That was a good race.
No.
Yeah, it was so good.
Yeah, no. Well, you go there to go hope for the whole big crash. There's only 12 cars. They're not.
Yeah,
not
I
that
do.
big. There's 12 cars.
What do you
There's
go
not going to
for?
be a 20-car crash if there's 12 cars.
What do you go there for?
It's short
Watch
track
them go
racing.
around
How are
in
you even going to
circles?
have a big pile up?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's Pauly.
But yeah, I mean, by that point, I think we probably had more wrecks in just the X30 main event for the shootout than they may have had at some of their races. But the important part of SRX and the part that Ashley should be absolutely proud of is the numbers that they pulled on TV rating wise. Granted, it was on general CBS, were phenomenal right off the bat, right behind NASCAR Cup, ahead of IndyCar neck and neck with them, ahead of F1 for the US. I mean, the numbers were really, really good, and that's a huge testament to that. And so, Ashley, for you, before we go to commercial and we come back with some of the other questions, we got a lot of viewer submitted questions. From your 2 cents of having worked that for one full season, are there a few things that, like in any racing series that SRX did, whether it's sensational or just entertaining, that you liked, that you could see with karting or with anything else too, or would like to see it in it?
Well, we were there for entertainment, right? So like we're on primetime TV, so it was very, it was grassroots racing. Like our whole point was we were trying to cut out the BS. Like NASCAR is, to me, in my opinion, very political, and you have to like say the right thing, and you have to worry about what you say. And we were more like we were trying to bring back old school racing, which I feel like can pertain to karting in a way. I feel like everything is so serious, and the whole point of karting is to have fun, and like if you're not having fun, then what's the point of doing it? So for me, getting to work with SRX, everything was fun. Like every time a driver got out of their car, wrecked or not wrecked, within 5 minutes they were fine, and they moved on and got over it, which was really refreshing and something that I think karting could use.
Yeah, I mean, having the rivalry and the drama stuff's good, and there was definitely that played up too. But you're right. I mean, whenever like they would wreck, whenever they'd rub into it, at the end of the day, it was like, all right, I went for it. It didn't work out, or I got chunked, but we go on to next week. I think it's tougher. It's easier to do when you have back-to-back races like that, where you can just know you're going to be racing in less than 6 days. It's tough when you have 2 months to sit on something, but that's a good point. It was less politics and going in to have a good time, which is awesome.
Right.
Well, guys, we've got not just, of course, Ashley here to talk about everything entertaining she got to do with her work, but the main thing we wanted to talk about tonight, and our talking point from all of these drivers, from Connor on the younger side, Pauly somewhere in the middle, although looking like the oldest guy with the beard. It's trimmed. I like it tonight, Colin. It's not like really scruffy. You took care of yourself. No one can see with the hat on what the hair looked like, but the beard looks great. Yeah, and put the hat back on, Paul. We're good. We're good.
Put it on.
Back on. But for Braden and Ashley, obviously, they've been racing for over 15 years, and so they've got a lot. And so the main thing we wanted to talk to both the parents and the kids tuning in here tonight, guys, is go over stuff that we wish we would have started doing sooner as a driver, stuff that we wish we would have learned a little bit earlier on, and everything else in between. And so, again, all that's going to come of stuff as we look back on, stuff to focus on, whether it's the mental game, the media, the driving, the mindset, right, of going in to have fun. That's all going to be coming right after our first commercial break. So stick with us. KC Happy Hour rolls on here, episode 11, here on September 20th.
You'd be hard-pressed to find a team that has won more races, won more championships, and produced more top-level drivers than Rollison Performance Group in the last decade. RPG is most commonly known as the premier driver development program in North America, specifically based on the team's unique approach when it comes to fostering talent. Rather than looking at things on a race-by-race basis, RPG focuses on building season-based plans for each driver, each with a heavy weight towards private training weekends at their home base at Pat's Acres Racing Complex. Each training weekend puts drivers on track with national champions such as Ryan Norberg, Austin Garrison, and Luke Selican for hundreds of laps. Add that to the meticulous equipment prep done by RPG's team of professional mechanics, and you've got a winning combination. For more information on how to start your driver development journey with RPG, visit RollisonPerformanceGroup.com. Kart Store USA is a kart parts supplier that racers and retailers can count on when they need reliable advice and service. We focus on servicing all racers with honesty and pride while maintaining customer satisfaction. We carry a full stock of Kart Republic and Tony Kart chassis, as well as IAMI and Vortex ROK engines. We've also got a host of other parts available and in stock, such as products from Rev Performance Materials, Jekko Racing Seats, and more. We have a 100% satisfaction guarantee, and on top of that, if your order exceeds $200, shipping is on us. Check out all we have to offer today by visiting us online at kartstore-usa.com.
Well, guys, welcome back here after the break. Like we said right before we went to commercial, we wanted to talk to some of our pro drivers that we've got here with us, on the ranks, on the ladder, and ranging in experience, as well as age, of stuff they wish they would have done, or things that they're working on now to try and make up for it. So I wanted to pass it off first to the youngest guy we got in the room, Connor. Connor, you've obviously turned a whole lot of heads. This year has been pretty spectacular for you, especially in those first few months. So tell me, it's never that easy. You don't just come out of kid karts and dominate and win every single race. What are some stuff that you worked on over the last few years or wish you probably got into sooner?
The main thing that helped me is I started karting when I was 4.5, and getting that young start helps so much. It's just you're able to learn the fundamentals so much quicker and at such a young age, so that you can move on to the more technical stuff that the older kids tend to have to learn when they're older. And I was able to learn those at a young age, so I was able to excel at a younger age, and that allowed me to get ahead of the curve. And when I got to the age of about 11 or 12, I was way ahead of everyone in the States, and that's when I started going to Europe, and I won some races in Europe, and ever since then it's just kind of been an uphill. It's been good for me since then. I've been winning a lot of races, and I've been able to stay ahead of the curve and keep working on fine-tuning my skills. And I think the main thing that allowed me to do that is starting at such a young age. I mean, I've seen people do it without it, but the people that do start at a young age it's just way easier to be able to do that. And one thing that I wish I could have done a little differently is I kind of wish I listened to people more. I started winning races when I was around 10 or 11, and I kind of got a big head and stopped listening to people and thought I was the best. And that's when I started to plateau a little bit when I was my first year in junior. And then I realized, I'm not the best, and I had to start listening to people again. And that's when I started to pick it back up. And this year in senior has really been good for me, and I've been able to win a lot of races thanks to all the people who have helped me.
And that's I want to pick on especially the part of talking about starting soon, because it's not about medals at that age. And Ashley, your dad Jim, he has a very specific kid kart philosophy. Why don't you tell everyone what he put you in with kid karts?
A Tony kart, an OTK. That was my first kart, and I started at 5 as well as Connor. So I got my first kart at 5, but I wasn't allowed to race until I turned 6. So we would make some laps around the neighborhood, and by the time I turned 6, I was, familiar and comfortable with the kart, and went from there.
Right, but he never put you in like good kid kart equipment. He put you in like rough stuff normally right off the bat.
Yeah, no, it was terrible. It was nothing fancy about it, because there was no I didn't bring much speed back then, so it was no worry about winning races or anything like that. It was just to get laps and experience. Right.
And again, just that's one thing to drive home for some of the newer parents or parents in cadet. And we have a lot that already are in the sport and know that pretty well. But when it comes to kid karts, the karts being a little bit slower, they're full throttle. So if you want to go out and chase wins, there's nothing wrong with going out and getting good memories. But I think Ashley is good proof, and there's plenty of other people that are good proof that didn't spend big budget until they got older. Braden, you especially, right? You and your dad were pretty shoestring all the way through almost the end of your cadet years.
Yeah, when I got started, it was we were just trying to get to the race and just try to finish the races. It was we didn't have the equipment to even really go out and be in the top half the field really. So it was a lot of years of just running around like literally dead last, just getting my butt kicked. And finally we started to realize that we were being held or I was being held back by that. So then we got some better equipment, and it was pretty quick learning curve from there once I had a good go-kart under me.
And then for both of you guys, because I kind of skipped over it a little bit, but Ashley, are there specific things you look back on your storied career? Because you've raced a little bit of everything. You've had a path that's kind of treaded on different waters. Are there anything you'd want to change, or anything you wish, like I wish I would have know that a little bit earlier on?
Yeah, so there's definitely a few things when I look back that I wish I would have known. I stayed in karting for, I feel like, a longer time than what, the people around me who were making it and making careers out of it did. I didn't try and make the transition to cars until I was almost 16. So I felt like I was a little bit behind the 8 ball there. And I didn't realize at the time how important marketing and networking and, social media, all of that was. And I didn't really have someone there to try and, tell me those things. So I was kind of doing it as I went, and I was learning every step of the way, but I just always felt like I was kind of behind the 8 ball on knowing how big those platforms were and how important they were. So if I could go back, I definitely would have, from an earlier age, started focusing on that and trying to learn more of that networking side and building relationships with different people and, going to bigger event races and trying to, get in and just say my name just so that, I was there. So that was something that I wish I would have known or someone would have told me younger. But all in all, I'm happy with where I'm at. So I don't know if I would really change anything, but if I was going to try and make it as a driver, I think that, I wish someone would have kind of pulled me aside earlier and told me that that would have been more helpful.
Yeah, I mean, that stuff's huge, right? Especially now, if you can get onto one of the social apps when they're newer and you can go viral or pop off before the algorithm slows down, I mean, that makes a big difference. And so for parents tuning in, I mean, if you're working on your kids' stuff and you want to help them grow it, earlier on, I mean, Facebook's great, Instagram's great, but that stuff's throttle. Braden, especially, obviously, you're a guy that really has to think about that with the car career you're on. How much do you focus on it now? And do you agree? Do you wish you would have looked at it sooner?
Yeah, I think it's always important to be, marketing yourself and getting, out to anyone that might be a fan, because that's one thing I've learned through the years is like, a lot of your fans are just people that you've met, and like they want to follow along and they want to know when you're racing and how they can watch and all that. So it's just being able to be accessible to everyone that wants to support you, and then obviously getting like that name out there for yourself. So like people hear your name and they're like, oh yeah, like that guy's good. So it's like it's just trying to put together like all the pieces to where you have that reputation for yourself, and then trying to build it online. I think that's the big thing for me.
Yeah. I mean, that's huge, right? Do you get a lot of people that's already even come up to you now, halfway up Indy Pro, and are like, don't forget about me, Braden, when you get big, et cetera, that you absolutely still remember, but they follow?
Oh yeah, I think it's I don't know, it's a little bit tough when people like say stuff like that to me, because it's like, like I'm just like trying to make it and I'm trying to move my way up and I'm really like a nobody. But to some people, like they look at me and they're like, oh, race car driver, like he's like famous and all this stuff, and it's like, come on, man. Like I still go to the go-kart track and coach and go race just because I love the sport, and it's just I'm no different a person than I was a few years ago,
Yeah. Pauly, let's go to you, buddy. You're, halfway in the middle age-wise and halfway in the middle in terms of, where you're at with your career and driving, and now you're getting into coaching and tuning a lot more. Do you wish you got into that stuff sooner? Is there other stuff you look back on?
Honestly, not really. I kind of wish I listened to my dad more when I was in cadet at CMP and just trying to learn everything. And I wish I listened to people when they were trying to help me. I was just too busy. I was having fun, but I was having too much fun, and I wish I kind of listened more and sat down and learned about the go-kart, what it's doing, what I need to fix, which I listened, but I just like kind of let it out the other ear. I wanted to go have fun, go hang out with my friends. And then finally, a few years later down the road, I finally started listening more and more and learning more and more, and that's helped me. And I kind of wish I just did that earlier in my career, and maybe I could have got to this point sooner, maybe not, I don't know. But now I sit in the trailer after the race day and I just look at data for an hour or two after every day. I go walk the track, and I never used to do that when I was little, but I wish I listened to my dad when he said you need to listen and stop goofing off, and you can do that later at lunch. And I wish I just listened more and paid more attention.
Well, that's a good segue into the first of the questions we got. We had a bunch of questions submitted on Instagram already, a little bit ahead of the show to give us some time to have some more talking points. So this first one, this is from one of our fans on Instagram, and I think everyone here at some point has probably been told that they suck or that they aren't that good. But it's a fun one to start it right off. And that's, has anybody ever told you that you would never be good and should give up on karting? And Connor, knowing your coach, I know you probably heard, maybe not give up on karting, but that you definitely suck.
Yeah, I heard that a few times when I was Gary. He wanted the best. He wanted the best for me, and it was all love. So I never really took it too seriously. But sometimes it kind of brought me down, and I really started to think. I was like, man, what if I never do make it? Like, what if? But hopefully one day I can and prove them wrong.
Yeah. And Ashley, these are all directed to you, so I'll give you the chance. Anyone come up to you and said, man, like, you need to go pick up a ball and go somewhere else?
I feel like this is like a scale line fight like topic. This is what like you would say to someone, like you come off the track and they just wreck you and they're like, you should never be in karting, you should never race again. I feel like that's where this is like stemming from. I don't think I've ever got it from like someone from an outside point of view, but definitely some of my racers on track. I feel like I've gotten this before.
I feel like I need to address this question a little bit because Xander knows. Okay, Xander and me go way back. All right. For the people that don't know, me and Xander I've known Xander for longer than just about anybody at the track has known Xander. And way back when we were just little junior kids with the group chat and all of that, you'd release an onboard on your YouTube channel and you would get roasted for it. Like, you made any singular mistake, you had 5 people yelling at you, telling you were the most worthless piece of meat in the world. So like every time you'd be like, oh, all right, I'm gonna upload this video. Then you just have people roasting you and it's like, man, screw you, I'm gonna go do better. Like, that was like the motivation for it. So like, you always turn like things like that into motivation, I think.
Yeah. No, that stuff pissed me off, man. That stuff absolutely pissed me off. Because
no motivation, just pissed.
Well, all right, so like, here's the thing. I mean, yeah, it motivated me too, right? But Braden and I, like, we all stayed in touch because we all lived all over. Like, I grew up in Atlanta. Braden obviously grew up in Ohio. We had friends in New York City and up and down the East Coast we'd see. So the trash talk was like magnified, like Braden said in the YouTube comment sections. But we would go around and there's like different terms for like a sucky driver in every different type of racing, right? There's like wanker is like more of a European term that's like adopted here in karting, right? And that's obviously more than just racing. That's a football term, soccer term especially. But we found in dirt karting on the ovals the word cob. And there's this really fun, like corn on the cob, COBB. And I introduced these guys to the word. I was like, man, this meme page on Facebook's hilarious. It's called You Might Be a Cob If. And it's like you have a white helmet and a clear visor. Or, if you have like NASCAR sticker. And then they would just call me that. Like, I just got roasted to oblivion. Squid, another good one. There's another one right here. So yeah, Christoph McChip. There's all kinds of words, but we would find them, and I would just nerd out on the sport and find like all the funny stuff, and then it would just get turned right back on me. I got abused. And yeah, like Braden and I would talk, because I remember Braden, like, we'd get on and I'd be like, Braden, like, can I see your onboard? He's like, no, bro, I made like 3 mistakes. Like, I'm not putting that up. Like, I'm not letting people see that where I didn't drive like at a 90%, And I don't know. I think like I think it's absolutely good to not show necessarily like races where like you intentionally crash somebody or you're like maybe when you're making a lot of mistakes. But I think going back to like the social media thing, being as authentic as you can be is the best you can do, you know, and showing that you have flaws, right? Nobody relates to a perfect person, even if they maybe want to be it. If anything makes people hate you, you know, I mean, Ryan Norberg does a phenomenal job of showing how he's right, but he's also gotten a lot better at showing when he's wrong. Because when a guy wins as much as he has won, when Connor wins as much as he's won, when people are just perfect at the top of their game, you get a lot of hate for it and you get a lot of heat. But you really, honestly, I mean, I don't know, you get some internet heat when you really suck too. But like, you don't get like as much if you have mistakes and you show that you have flaws. I think that's a big thing to talk about. But yeah, Braden and I, it's been almost more than 10 years now.
No, not that long. Not that long.
No, we were like 13. I think 13.
I'm too scared to go and do
like
what Ryan
8,
does on
9
YouTube.
years.
I just know I'll get hated on if I go out there and say, yeah, I should have passed this guy, or yeah, my tire pressure was too high, or yeah, but my tire pressure. Like I don't have the
you don't have the Norberg Nation behind you. That's the problem.
I don't have the self-motivation to go out there and tell people what I'm doing wrong. It's just like, I don't know. I should, but
don't care.
Well, and that's the other thing too, right? So here's our next question. Best name to get your name out there for sponsorship. We talk social media, be authentic.
All right. Above all that, you have to win races. That's how you get your name out there.
I think that's big, but both, because there are guys that are sponsored. I mean, I've said this on when we had like our personal podcast as well, that I think I probably didn't. If you go off results, I don't think I deserve the amount of funding help that I got in all the years that I've been racing. But I think both networking especially, and then a bit of a social following, and then the following I had through like announcing and stuff, and the fact that it was more commission based of me bringing people to the team or working to pay it off. So there's ways to get your name out for sponsorships. What Ashley said is huge. Just going to races and volunteering. I mean, there was a thread we had on Kart Pulse on one of the major forums, which is a big shout out to James McMahon and that group over there. And I told the kid was, I think he was maybe 16 or 17, probably didn't have a whole lot, maybe more than like a 206 budget. And I was like, look, like, you know, especially right now with the labor shortage in the country, I think every shop would happily take an extra kid to run around the tent and pick up trash and wipe down go-karts and stuff like that. You don't even have to be mechanically inclined, but if you do that enough and you volunteer your time, there are good people out there that will take care of you and you'll find them. So in terms of getting your name out there, social media is big. But you know, working hard is good, and winning races is important. But
being mature as well, I think, because obviously when you're coming up and you're younger and you know, like a lot of the kids like 14, 15, 16, and that's kind of where you're getting to the point where maybe you're thinking about cars, maybe you're getting really good. You know, adults really pay attention to the way you act, and just being mature and knowing how to talk and knowing and not being a little kid. Like adults realize that thing, and then like they'll like watch your racing, and if you can just like get to know some people they're older and maybe grow a bit of a network there, that's like how sponsorship is all networking and racing. So it's all about just knowing people and making people like you, really.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Yeah, it's if you make a good impression, right, you find the right people, they'll take care of you.
Yeah, and Connor's done a really good job with that. Like Connor plays the very happy medium of being a kid while also being mature. Like he's Connor, you're a mature kid. Like I'll give you a compliment right here.
Thank you.
But you know how to clown, but you also know how to like be serious when you need to. So
yeah, that's the thing. I mean, you need to be serious to a certain point. I mean, you can't. I see kids out there that are they're taking it to a point of not having fun, and in the end, it's all about having fun. So if you're going out there and you're taking it way too serious and you're not having fun, then there's no point. I mean, yeah, your odds might be a little bit better, but the people like that want to sponsor you, they don't want someone. I mean, in certain cases they might, but they don't want someone that's like straight to the point. This is it. They want people that people are going to like, and people aren't going to like the people that are not going to have fun on an interview or not going to have fun when they're talking to you, or they like the people with personality. So you have to find the happy medium of it. And also another thing is, if you come off the track and you go sit in your trailer and go on your phone, and no one's going to know who you are. I mean, unless you go out there and win every single race, you got to go up to people, shake their hands, meet them. And that's the thing. You have to know people in the sport. You can't do it all on your own. I mean, to a certain point, you're going to run out of funding eventually. So you have to know people, and that's basically what the sport's all about.
Yeah. And, when you break it down, at the end of the day, when it comes to sponsorship, those guys are not giving you money because, they sell 10,000 cars when you win a go-kart race. They're going to give, or a car race or whatever. Your job is to try and help their business make more money, whatever the sponsorship is. However it's structured, 90% of advertising sponsorship is based on you helping drive, whether it's recognition and exposure or eventually to their bottom line with sales. So if you think of it that way and you're like, all right, well, how can I be of value to that company, especially for kids, as you guys start to work on your social media and stuff like that, having a personality is big with everything Connor and Braden are doing, what Pauly's doing more of, and, what Ashley mentioned she wished she did more of. That stuff's all huge too. But don't forget, those guys aren't giving you money just because they think you're a good person and can win. It's really important that you figure out a way that they're like, man, I gave you $1,000, and they feel like they got $2,000 back. And that's how you get sponsors to keep coming back and to keep, going with us. It's the same thing here, right, with our show. We can only charge so much for the commercials you guys see in between each segment because it's based on the amount of viewership and eyeballs they get driven to their website. And then that at the end of each month, for us as a sponsorship and as a show, we go to those companies and we say, all right, how many extra clicks did you get to your website during happy hour or since at least you started advertising with us? And all right, are you getting back the money that you're spending to advertise with us? Is that worth it to you? And you try and find a number that's worth it. So that's where the social media following comes in, because if you can get them to a lot of eyes, if you're a guy that's known around the racetrack, Connor, Braden, Ashley, Pauly, these guys are all sponsored by equipment, and that comes down to the fact that they're well known. And if someone comes up and talks to them at the racetrack and they're like, hey, Connor, how's your Tillet rib vest? Or whatever rib vest you're on now. I'm not sure which one you've got, but
it's Tillet.
Yeah, Tillet rib vest. Connor will be like, yeah, my ribs haven't broken in a couple of years, so then they might go buy one. That stuff's important. Let's see. We've got a bunch more here and a bunch more questions actually starting to come in on YouTube and Facebook as well. But this is a really good question, Ashley. This one's specifically for you, of course. And this is, asking, do you feel as a female in racing if you're held to a different standard than the rest of the guys?
I would say yes, in a way. I feel like with, being a female in a male-dominated sport, you're looked at as, I don't want to say looked down on, but I feel like it's harder for females to get the recognition that they deserve. Like, for example, Hannah Greenmeyer won the Pro Tour this year, which is, written in history books now. And she's, I don't know, Xander, you can help me. I think she's probably the first female to ever win an X30, right? Or in like the premier class.
So Hannah's the second ever SCUSA Pro Tour national champ. The first one was Sabre Cook, who's running over in the W Series nowadays. But she won in S2 semi-pro shifter. So for Hannah to win in a pro class or a headline class is the first girl to do so. So there's a lot of that, and that's like, she, the thing about Hannah, it's magnified because she is like an absolute sweetheart, super nice, down to earth, like extremely humble girl. And so that helps. Her personality just magnifies that. She's not about as far from a dirty driver as you probably can get.
Right. Yeah. But just to finish up on that question, I would say, growing up until like I was able to establish that I was a front runner and that I could win races, I felt like that road was difficult because it was always like, especially in like sportsman stuff, the boys don't want to get beat by a girl, right? I mean, it sounds so cliche, but I did see a lot of it like growing up, and until I could start proving that I could win, you do go through a lot of that down that road. So once you prove yourself though, and like you can show that you win races and you can show you run up front, I don't think it's as big of a deal or a standard you would say, but definitely establishing your name is a little bit more difficult, I would say, for a female.
Well, that's good. I mean, it's good to see at least like it can be broken through, right? And I think you're proof of that. Hannah's proof of that. Saber's proof of that. It's possible, but 100%. I mean, I don't think any of these guys like getting beat, period. But you work with 10-year-olds on a weekend basis, so you absolutely know it even today.
Oh yeah.
Well, guys. Connor, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna add about how I have a ton of respect for Hannah, because a lot of the girls I see nowadays that are near the top ranks in racing, they don't really do their winning on the track. They mostly do it on their social media by putting themselves out there. But Hannah is actually a really good driver, and you don't really see that. I mean, I don't know what, like, Hannah is a really good driver, and the people that I see, the girls that I see at the top ranks, I mean, some of them are good drivers, but the most of the top ranked girls that I see, they're not as good of drivers, and they're more of just off track. They're able to publish themselves off track, and I mean, good for them. But the thing about Hannah is she is I mean, as good as me as a driver, and no, I really have a lot of respect for her.
Yeah.
And that, just to add to that, that's kind of like what sucks about being a girl, is like the girls who do make it, either, you know, not all of them, but a lot of them do have the money or the pretty face and this and that. And that's what females are looked like in motorsports. Like it's almost like a joke. When there are females out there that really can drive, that maybe aren't getting the same opportunities because, you know, maybe they're not selling themselves off the racetrack the same way that these ones are. So that's another thing that, not to go off feminine spiel, but
that's kind of what I was looking for, but I didn't want to say it myself. So thank you, Ashley.
You do see it. I mean, females definitely have a stigma of, you know, pretty face, can't drive, but there are females like Hannah and myself and Sabra and there, you know, Brooke, all these people, all these girls that like have gone out there and won these races that, you know, struggled to get to the next step and to make it because, you know, we may not be as well as like the off track side, which for me, which is kind of what I was talking about earlier. Like I wish I would have gotten to the networking side and, you know, building those relationships off the track sooner to make my career as a driver. But anyway.
Yeah. But hey, you've done still pretty good for yourself, Ashley. You got to give yourself some credit. You're doing pretty good. The rest of everyone here is doing really good as well. And again, shout out to Hannah. Like Connor said, I mean, she's a top tier driver and she's got a lot of momentum behind her now. And we're huge fans of her too. So we'll have her on very soon, I'm sure. We're going to go to commercial just for a little bit. When we come back, we got a few more questions to answer from all of y'all. Stay tuned here with us. KC Happy Hour rolls on. One more commercial break and our final segment of the night.
I'm Billy Vincent, owner of MPG Motorsports. What we do at MPG is we try to keep it a nice, fun family atmosphere, try to combine sort of the bigger things and of the bigger teams and the professionalism down with sort of some of the fun sort of family-oriented atmosphere. We try to not only develop drivers, but also the parents and the families for just the knowledge in general in motorsports. It all starts in karting. What we try to do is try to help the drivers, the moms, the dads understand the sport of motorsports in general, not just karting, but what it takes to get all the way up through. Whether you end up wanting to be a driver or a mechanic or an engineer, you know, we can help you with that, and that's what we're here for. If you're interested in joining us at MPG, our home base is at Whiteland Raceway Park in Indianapolis, and you can contact us at info@willpowerkart.com, and one of our great people will reach out to you, and we'll try to put the best program together.
KC Happy Hour is presented by Precision Performance Karting. PPK is the exclusive South Florida dealer for Coyote Motorsports kart racing chassis and Coyote's newest distributor. However, owner John Seglem and Coyote Motorsports' relationship spans across numerous decades in the sport, meaning that you've got years of winning expertise at your service. PPK offers trackside support at all of the CKNA South Division events, the CKNA majors, such as the Spring Nationals and the Grand Nationals, the Sunshine State Karting Challenge, and a number of club races in the Southeast. PPK also has an impressive driver roster at these events, racking up multiple wins and podiums in 2021 with longtime Coyote Motorsports driver Chris Carroll and KC Happy Hour's own Pauly Massimino and Brandon Jarsakrak. If you're looking to get on the same race-winning equipment as these drivers, from the Coyote Motorsports chassis to the Odenthal motor mounts and Greyhound racing seats, Precision Performance Karting has you covered. Check out Precision Performance Karting on Facebook and Instagram, or email them at ppkartingfl@gmail.com.
Welcome back from commercial, everybody. Oop, wrong one we got to bring us on back. But we still have a few more questions here, so you guys are still welcome to send them in as we go through them. We've gotten already a handful, and if you're just joining us here tonight, Ashley Rogero is with us, who is not part of our normal weekly crew, but she has been giving us a lot of really good perspective and a lot of good talking points on her career coming through, and especially what it's been like as a girl coming in such a male-dominated sport in the world, and she has done a phenomenal job paving her way, just like some of the other trailblazers that we get to see on a regular basis throughout racing, as we were talking about Hannah Greenemeyer right before in her recent national title. We got a few more questions, though. I think this one actually was really good. I was a big fan of this one, and I know that everyone here at some point has hit a bit of a cold streak and what you have to do mentally to get out of it. So it's really easy, obviously, to beat yourself down, and in racing, it's not always under your control, but in any sport, it's really, really tough to get out of that mental slump. So, Pauly, you always get mad that we don't let you talk, so we'll let you be the first one to talk. How about – yeah.
Where's Brandon when we need him?
Yeah, where is he? He could be like, well, I get on happy hour every week and it still hasn't changed. But
Just saying.
Pauly, you've at least had a couple good runs recently, but you've been part of cold streaks. What do you do?
To be honest, nothing. I just kind of just.
We try to let him talk, and he doesn't talk.
I kind of just. Well, I'm being honest with you. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. So pretty much, I just have a bad weekend, and I have a long conversation with my dad. He usually tells me, if you don't pick it up, you're done. So usually I try and pick it up. I make sure I go to the track, and now I try to stay focused more than ever. But if I do have a bad weekend, I look back at what I did wrong, and I move on to the next race and push that one behind, and don't look in the past, and put my head down and try to get to work.
Standard. It was a good. We'll give you the general answer. Now let's dive deeper here, Braden. I know you've spent a good bit of time working the mental game yourself, especially because with the championships you've got online, you're racing for high stress, big money stuff that can make and break careers. Is there stuff that you do or ways that you kind of tell yourself to stay neutral?
Well, I think it depends. It's a little bit different between car racing and karting, because if I was on a cold streak in karting, normally what I would do was I would go bitch at Brandon Jenkins and tell him my engine wasn't good enough. And then he would pull one out of the corner and be like, here, I've never run this before. It's probably terrible. Put this on. I'd bolt it on, and I'd always win that race, always. So in karting, normally I just go to the engine builder. And
I need to try that strategy.
and then in car racing, it's a bit different. I don't know. It's so weird, the car stuff. Just like, I don't know. It's normally just about not thinking too much about it, and then also letting like the bad results motivate you to like work harder and go to the next race and do better than you ever have before.
Ashley, what about you? I mean, when you especially like for the few years where you were only racing a few major races a year, like, I mean, you came up through out of Florida, which was the big during the Rotax era in that region. So you had Grand Nationals, you'd have Winter Tour, you had Pan Am, which you did really good at, right? But that's big gaps between races. So when it's a streak, it could go on for months, even if it was only a couple races. I mean, what is there anything you did as well?
So the generic answer, analyze the race, figure out what went wrong, what you could do better. Be your biggest critic yourself. Go back, do as much research and figure out what you can do. But I'm a very superstitious person, so throw your socks away, throw your underwear away, wash your headstock, wash your suit, get all the bad juju out, and bring some new one in.
Yeah, well, I think I'd like to speak on that too. Like Braden was saying, I don't think anyone got more heat than I did in the group chat we had. I would honestly, I would read that stuff, and then I would wait. I'd try and whether it's listen to the right music to kind of get yourself to the right headspace before you go back out, because I think, with these guys, honestly, what comes naturally to everyone here in this room, especially these four, is how they've trained themselves to get back to neutral before the next session. Because when you can say streak, you could even talk like during a race day, where at some point in the race day, let's say you got wrecked in the pre-final or you had a bad qualifying session, right? And, and then it just keeps going. It keeps compounding. I mean, I've had, I talk with Braden and we joke about it with the videos back then, and we talk about equipment. But I mean, truthfully, my stuff was way too shoestring to be trying to run at the level that I was at for quite some time. And that would mean that a lot of practice days I was trying to make chains go a little bit longer, or different equipment would break. And it's tough to get kind of mentally back there. But there's a lot of different ways that I think everyone has their own system of trying to level it out. Like they say, the generic answer is going back, and when you can get to a level mental state is looking at ways to improve and fix your mistakes. But beyond that, you've got to find like your zen, in Ashley's case, if it's throwing stuff out, you throw stuff out, you clean stuff, and the juju's gone. If it's, there's nothing wrong with getting on your phone for a few minutes to zone out of the racing for a little bit. Like, like Pauly said, you don't want to use that as a crutch to not, go and analyze your data and video. You want to be smart with your time. But if you need to do something to get back to not too hyped up, or in this case, not be too negative on yourself, you've got to be, when you're on the grid for a race, like humble and neutral and ready to go. Because if you're overhyped, you're going to be over aggressive and probably crash trying to do a crazy pass. And if you're negative, you're probably not going to go for that pass because you may not even think you deserve it. And I know like one of the first races that I ran with the pushback bumper, I knocked it in pretty early on. And looking back, like I just felt so deflated. We talked about it last week too, but I let that get to me. And I think I probably could have at least crossed the line about 5 or 7 spots higher if I, even mid-session, right, didn't let that stuff bring me down. So that's something to figure out, stuff besides racing that can bring you back up, so you can get to a neutral state of mind, I think. And that's ultimately where those streaks end. If you can figure out what the problem is and then also mentally be good, that stuff will eventually come around. Let's see. Oh, we had a donation here. Philip Nienkiewicz. This is actually a really good question too. Philip, thanks for the donation as well, $5. We appreciate it. We appreciate you tuning in. So here was a really good question. When was your racing breakthrough? When did you start winning? What did you change, start seeing results? When did stuff click just for that extra little bit? Because we talk about it all the time that, and Ashley and Braden have spent years and years coaching drivers. Now Pauly and Connor are getting into it. It's not a standard, diagonal curve. Everyone plateaus, everyone hits a spark, and so this is a really good one. Pauly, we'll give you first honors again. When did you feel like things clicked for you? What was the spark and what changed?
Probably when I joined Doty in I think it was 2019-ish. I don't remember, but it was around that time, and I was starting to get more and more help. But then I kind of actually really started focusing on listening and taking the time to go through the data, go through the video, let people yell at me for what I'm doing wrong. And now, I mean, I won, I don't really win still, but I'm working on it. But now I really go into the trailer. Everyone's kind of doing their own thing, but at the end of the day, I don't watch my video, but I will look at the data compared to everybody else on the tent. I will stay in there for about probably an hour to 2 hours, just looking at everything, looking at every single corner, looking at everything that I could do to fix, or what I might need or what I might not need, and what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong. But I will sit in there and just look at everything at the national events and just study it so I can be better.
Ashley, what about yourself? Do you remember the weekend where you feel like, man, I'm a contender now, or things clicked specifically?
Yeah, it was a really black and white weekend for me specifically. I felt like I was racing Sportsman, and when I, first moved up from Sportsman, I was terrible, terrible. I was slow. I didn't we'd go to Daytona and not even make the A main. We'd not make the A main, be in the back of the B main. We did that for 2 years. But we went to a Florida Winter Tour race in Homestead and Sportsman, and I had wrecked put it in the barrier 3 different times that weekend. And, we went into the final, I wrecked in the pre-final, started last. And I just remember being so fed up with being trash. I was just so tired of being the one that, was always in the back, and it just flipped. Like I remember sitting on the grid and was just like, I'm going to go out there and freaking destroy it. And I ended up winning that race starting from last. And that really was when my light switch came on. And honestly, that's how I explain it to, the parents that I do coach. I say, I can do so much, but there is light switches in all of them, and they have to be the one to turn it on. So for me, I did it, that it took me getting angry at myself for finishing bad and like not wanting to be in the back anymore to start seeing those results. So from there on, I was able to keep progressing, and I was able to run up front, and so that's how it was for me.
Braden, can you remember the weekend where it clicked for you?
Yeah, I think it was kind of like a progressing through my first year in senior. I felt like I was really good in junior, but was racing some guys that had big money, and we just never quite had the equipment to do it. Went up to senior, and then I remember the exact weekend that it happened. It was like I had went to Jay, was working with Jay for a couple races, and then we started to get our engine program under control. And then we went to Phoenix, and that was when we got it all together. And then I ended up going out and winning. That was my first national win really since cadet at that point. And it was all finally being put together, but I don't know if it was necessarily fully based on skill, because I felt like I had been at that level for a little bit then, and it was just putting it all together with the equipment and obviously, executing a race properly.
And Connor, what about you, man? You absolutely were already feeling like you turned a light switch this year. I mean, from an outside, it almost seems like when you came back from Europe or after winning the Academy Trophy Series. But do you feel like it came even before that?
Yeah, I like to say it was in 2017 when I won the ROK World Finals and Supernats both within the same month. That's when it really clicked for me, because before that I was a mid-pack kind of. I got lucky and won the WKA Man Cup Series and got a ticket to Italy, and I had no intentions on even making the final when I went there. And I went there with a full head of steam, win it or bin it. And I went there and I somehow managed to win. And after that, I won Supernats after being like a mid-pack mini driver the whole year. So I think that's the main thing for me. And parents always ask me, like, man, I'm putting so much time into this. And same thing with what Ashley said is, I can only do so much. I mean, I can tell them what to do, but until they go out there and their light switch flips on, I can't do too much. And I've seen it happen with some kids, and other kids, it still is yet to happen. And it's something that I don't know what it is, but there's something in us that turns that switch on. And when it does turn on, you can tell. And I think that switch turned on in 2017 for me, and ever since then, it's been a lot better.
It's such an incredible thing too, because we all work our whole lives towards racing, and it's building on from the time we're 6 years old, 7 years old, 8, all the way until we're in our teens, always learning every single weekend. And then all of a sudden you'll get to that point and you'll put everything together, and you can never give up, because it can be anyone can just figure it out. And it's wild, just to see the amount of work and the amount of time that needs to be put in before it all comes together. It's something.
Right. And I mean, I think from a driver's perspective, and you can probably get that from everyone here, I mean, your mentality might change a little bit, but the weekend where it culminates, it almost is anticlimactic, because everything's natural by that point. You've worked on, worked on late apexes, working on maximizing your braking, working on being smooth on the wheel and making the right decisions. And I think probably my best recent weekend was that weekend in Ocala. And I don't even know if I looked at data once or twice. I think I spent most of the time coaching the other people that are around me. And I think like everyone there saying, I mean, you can even hear it in Connor's story, I mean, went over there, didn't expect to do anything, but I mean, Connor, did you do anything specifically different, when you went through that weekend? Because like you said, that was massive to go and win a world championship race.
Yeah, the main thing is surrounding yourself with the right people. I mean, you can be the best driver in the world, and if you're not surrounded by the best equipment, then you're going to get beat by the 95% driver with the 100% equipment when you're the better driver. And I mean, there's still cases of that today when I see kids that I watch their video and I'm like, man, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, you're driving as good as I could, and you're just running 10th because you don't have the best motor. And I mean, you see that in some kids, and I went to Europe and I got surrounded with all the best equipment, and that's when it clicked. And ever since then, it's been uphill.
Ashley, we can't let you out here, right, without letting Kyle Kalish's comments pop up on the screen. So first, he wanted to his belief is your breakthrough weekend was you pushing him to a podium at Charlotte. And then, of course, he also wanted to casually just remind you, this is on Instagram, when, he won the KPV national title. I mean, chirp him back, let him – I mean, he can't even say anything, but he's already chirping at you.
Oh, I'm sure he is. But that's funny, that race in Charlotte that he's talking about, that's like before I won that race that I was previously speaking about. And Kyle had been like this front runner, this top guy, and this is back when WKA had, 40, 50 carts in the class. So for Kyle to be, winning races and stuff, I was running in like the 20s. Like I was not fast at all. And Kyle had gotten into a wreck or something, and he ended up like back where I was. And I hooked on the back of his bumper and literally never left it. Like I felt like I was faster than him, but I was just like, oh my God, Kyle Kalish is in front of me. I have to push him. Like he wins races. So he'll hold that over me forever.
This is amazing.
Literally pushed him all the way to third, and this was my first like top 5 ever in a race because I finished right behind him. And I come off the scales, and I remember I was literally like crying. I was so happy that I finished top 5 because I literally was like in the 20s before. And I went to like hug my dad, and he was like, "Why didn't you effing pass him?" He's like, "You get the following award. Why? You were so much faster." And I was like, I just finished in the top 5. Like, why are you yelling at me? And it was just like no credit. And he was like just mad that I didn't pass Kyle. So.
That's how it was for me growing up too. I mean, I could go out there and win a race by 20 seconds, and Gary and my dad would tell me, why didn't you win by 25? And I'm like,
yeah, yeah, that was it. I got, it was funny because Mark Dismore actually heard the whole conversation with me and my dad at the scale line. And I'm pretty sure Mark went up to him afterwards and was like, "You're an a-hole. Like, what are you like?" She was so happy, and you just like shit on her. And I was like, "All right, well, 5th isn't good enough." So that's keeps.
And that's
keeps
a good
motivated.
thing. I mean, I see guys nowadays. I mean, they're happy for the kids, but it gets to a point where it's like, man, you have to motivate these kids. You can't tell them they're doing amazing when they're really not doing their best, and they could do better. I mean. It's good to have that source of motivation coming from behind you when you're not getting told you're doing amazing, and that pushes you to do better because you can do better.
Right. I mean, another common theme, right, between all 4 of you is how involved both your dad and your coaches were and how hard they were on you. I mean, I think especially, with Braden and I talk about it all the time, but, ultimately both the coaches and then eventually that rubbed off on yourself. And another funny point too, I mean, Braden and I joke about it all the time when we like look at cadet, but when you see like the kid that's like not only like happy that they win, but like pissed off when they lose or like are like crying or whatever, like you're like, man, like that's the kid that's going to go and dominate senior in like 5 years because they really want to win, and not every kid wants it. So that emotion's is not a bad thing either, whether it's coming from the driver or the coaches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got Braden, one more. Were you adding to it?
What's
or you
that? No.
This was another question here that came in over Instagram. I wanted to make sure we got at least all of our Instagram people and hit all of those. The best way to get into 2-cycle racing. So, I mean, just like we've been talking about from the social media side, guys, I mean, that part of, getting into any part of the racing world is just about going there. I think the one thing we try to do a lot with Kart Chaser and with bringing all these drivers on, and you can see, just like Braden said, I mean, Braden's, halfway up on his way to IndyCar and doing a great job with it, but he's still at the go-kart track. And even if you saw him at a race, he's still going to talk to you. So if you want to get into any division of racing, whether it's go-karts, whether it's cars, whether it's 206 or K or X30 racing, just go where the racing is, pay the pit pass, go in and talk to people. We have a passion sport. Everybody loves it. My favorite part of these race weekends now is the slow and steady following we built through Kart Chaser is getting to meet more people that we've been able to get introduced to and help you guys get started. I think the first bit of advice I would give to anyone is to, push yourself. And with all the advice you hear from these superstars is that there's no rush necessary to jump into a faster or higher horsepower car or go-kart for that matter until you're ready, right? So if you're racing 206 racing right now and you're looking at KA100 racing next up, I mean, make sure that you're doing everything you can to drive the 206 to the maximum degree, When we go to the 206 Grand Nationals here in 2 weeks, there are going to be guys racing those with that have got their chassis tuned perfectly. But if you're talking about club racing or regional racing, if you once you crack the top 5, top 10, then I would buy that ticket and go to the 2-cycle racing and start asking people of what brands to get on, what motors to get on. And, hey, I mean, not everyone's as lucky as Braden where they can just go bitch at Brandon Jenkins and get a really good motor. But you can at least find some people that'll help you get into it. So go there, meet the people that are doing it. But everyone's really friendly. And anyone that says that they're not or anyone that isn't friendly, let us know. We'll absolutely put some hate posting out there and, knock their social media down. I mean, look, even Pauly's smiling at that, right? Everyone says Pauly looks mean. Pauly will talk to you too, right, Pauly?
Has Pauly said anything this whole time?
We tried to let him talk. He went, no.
All right,
No,
maybe
I'm pretty
Pauly's
sure I
not the
talked,
best
but-
one.
No, I talk to you. I talk to people all the time. Sometimes they don't like what I say, but I still talk to them.
Yeah, but that's let's see. I think that's most of what we've got. Here we go again with the chassis stuff.
Oh God! Oh God!
Don't listen to Brandon. Braden. Don't listen to Braden.
See, to everyone tuning in and asking these guys on chassis, I mean, we talk about sponsorship for all of them running the teams where they're at, whether they're sponsored with chassis or not, they're going to tell you to get on the go-kart that they're on. So, I mean, they run up front with it. You can't hit on the willpower carts. They're with Braden, the OTKs for the rest of these three. Saying what one's better or not, you're not going to get a real honest answer here out of these people. Everyone's
no honest answers here.
Okay. We'll say as long as you are on a Kart Republic or a Tony Kart, you're doing fine. Anything other than that,
that's actually pretty honest.
Some people could try and say Burrell, but
have you ever driven a different go-kart, Connor? Have you been an OTK your whole life? Why don't you try something new?
Come on, man.
How do you know it's the best if you never tried anything else?
I drove a Kart Republic once.
I drove
you can't, Connor, you can't go off of that. You don't even have the right weight on. It's all like you can't even go off of that.
I drove a CRG too. I can tell you that was not the move.
Nah, those CRG cadets, those fast.
Yeah.
Answer the question. OTK is not the best chassis. It's the most overrated chassis.
Whatever.
End of discussion.
Whatever.
Well, we'll let everybody go off.
It's a very biased subject.
Yeah, we will not. We will be in circles here till midnight tonight, so we won't bore you guys with that. But the real answer beyond any of that stuff, like Connor's saying, Kart Republic OTK. I mean, that has been, if you watch any of our videos and all the posting, that has been winning the almost every main event. And if you look at what the majority of the field's running, that's huge. But
Tony Kart's better.
But what's more important is having good people around you. I think equipment is huge. Absolutely, it is huge. I think, but especially if you're getting started or until you get to the point where you are within a couple tenths of the top guys, that equipment will make a difference, right? Braden said he got to a point, then he felt like equipment was holding him back. Maybe it's more than a few tenths, but at the very beginning, wherever you find someone that you can trust, someone that'll be honest with you, that'll tell you when you do suck, because, I mean, I got it pretty harshly from my friends, but it did help me. And that will, help you get going is the best go-kart to be on, because there's a lot of OTK and Kart Republic dealers out there, but if there's a really good guy by your track selling Burrells or selling Sodis or selling any of the other brands, if he's trustworthy, if he's a good guy, and if he can really coach you as a driver, that's a phenomenal starting point no matter where you go. So, you can worry about the best chassis out there when you become one of the best drivers out there. Then that'll make a big difference for you for sure. On that note, I do want to wrap it up. Pauly, final chance. Whatever you want to say to the people, because they're waiting on you.
About what?
Anything.
What to talk about? I mean, All right, I'll talk about the chassis. I feel like you could make a lot of the chassis work. I maybe you can make the OTK, maybe the KR work a little bit better, but I feel like if you really love a go-kart, you can make it work, and if you know how to drive it and drive around all the stuff you're dealing with, I feel like you can really make it work. Maybe not the Burrell, but other than that, I'm just kidding. But I feel like the way the tires are changing and how they're using fake rubber and the rubber's not coming down, like the comp cart, the Burrell, the stuff that kind of struggled in the real heat and the rubber, I feel like you can make them work now as long as you tune it the right way and you know how to drive it the right way. But I'd still recommend OTK.
Ashley, any comment there? Are you going to get into the boys measuring contest?
No, but the only thing I will say is, to Pauly's point, I think that the best way it was explained to me is it's a window that you can make the cart work. And I think, like, for example, the OTK has a bigger window that the cart works in, so it's easier to get it fast. Where I think that the Kart Republics can be just as fast. Like, and I'm not saying the Tony Kart is going to go faster than the Kart Republic, but I think that it's harder to get the cart right to be there. That's how my perception on it.
Braden, rebuttal.
Rebuttal is OTK is never in the window.
I don't know how you can even say that. You can
how much work do you do on a race weekend? A lot or no?
No, not really. No.
Pretty much like a Newcastle for Scusa. You were
okay. That was different. That was different. Oh, okay. That was different. That was different.
Seats, axles, ride height.
Just little things.
I gotta put my hat on. That's
little things.
Cap.
There you go.
Dented in the middle, Connor.
Full time. See, look at him. Remember, an hour and 13 minutes late, but he did get the sponsors out there.
I think the most important thing is to know, if you have the best engine, you can have the worst go-kart, and the go-kart's probably going to feel pretty good, and vice versa.
Yeah, if you got an ABP, doesn't matter what go-kart you have.
All right. Pauly's getting muted again. We're going to cut the mics off. Let everybody go. Last bit here, Jim Henry mentioned for Pauly, Connor, and Ashley. Zach said hi, so hi to Zach Henry.
What up,
Thanks
Zach?
everybody.
Wow, he left me out. All right.
Oh, well, no, he didn't forget about you. He said, sorry, Braden, he just doesn't know you yet. So everybody tuning in, as always, thank you guys so much. Big thank you to Ashley for joining us here tonight. We always have a blast doing these KC Happy Hour shows. We're going to bring a bunch more guest hosts on as we get closer. We got a lot of 206 guys we're already reaching out to, because it's going to be a wild, fun show at the 206 Grands in a week and a half. We're going to have a bunch of them on next week and get going. Racing season, it's about to get a pretty busy dose here in October through November and December. We're going to have a blast. We hope you guys are with us. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.